Hello and welcome. Moving straight on with the first comment I have here. In my area, there are only a Tibetan temple. Would you recommend attending the Tibetan temple, even if not particularly drawn to this tradition? Or how do I practice Theravada without a local Sangha? Okay, so yes, if you have a Buddhist temple of whatever tradition, whether it's the northern school, the southern school, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Tibetan, with all its unique and individual characteristics, or Theravada, it's neither here nor there when visiting. It ought to be a relatively peaceful, tranquil place to spend some time, to practice generosity and maybe offer the Sangha that live there something they need, inquire as to their list, what requisites they may be short of, and even help out if you can, be a part of the community. Your interest is not the Theravada tradition, is not the Tibetan tradition, but the Theravada tradition. That's okay. You can still practice. The core teachings of Buddhism, the Dharma, are the same throughout all traditions. The Four Noble Truths, which includes the Noble Eightfold Path, which includes Samadhi, the development of absorbed states of meditation. Many monasteries, many temples are quite busy places. Just sort of backing up to the question the other day with regards to living in solitude, seemingly in the absence of Kalyanamita, as opposed to living in a community of monks. One reason I choose to live in, having lived with communities of monks for many, many years, many more years than I've lived alone, in and out and in varying places, I've chosen to practice in solitude. You find in community life, there will be free time for meditation, and in some places more free time than others. But I found myself searching for places that had more free time rather than the realization that all of my time was free if I wasn't part of a community where I was having to, understandably, as part of a team, all support each other and work, building, creating, maintaining, looking after. This is community life. It's quite different. The Buddha asks us, teaches us that our practice can be, and this applies to lay people really as much as bhikkhus, within a monastery, a community such as that, alone, which would include anywhere, under a tree, in an empty building, as I am now. It isn't empty because I am in it. Other than that, it would be empty, which is why it's provided out of the generosity of the owners and locals for free of charge, to all intents and purposes, bar some expenses that we cover, you cover, and or a cave, or under a tree, or just under the open stars, and I've lived like that also. As far as your practice is concerned and finding a Theravada Sangha, well, you do have the benefit these days of online groups, online channels. Now I do appreciate, and I'm not sure, because I'm not a social media or internet aficionado by any stretch of the imagination. And even now, when I come to turn on this device to make this recording, I get a little bit confused because things are continuously changing. What I'm faced with is different, and I have to find the relevant button for us to get going. But I've noticed recently, trying to search in even on YouTube for my own videos in order to send a link where somebody has asked for that subject I've spoken about previously to be discussed again, and I thought, well, it would probably be appropriate for me to send them a link to that already spoken of subject that I've already recorded. And for the life of me, I can never find anything. All I get is one monk ever comes up, ever. when I search for whatever I put in, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist monks, 12 links of dependent origination. I put these search terms in. I put in English Buddhist monk, 12 links of dependent origination. What do I get? I get this one monk comes up. I don't know why that is, but he's got like 125 billion followers, so that's possibly why. So, but with research online, I'm sure you, as experts in this subject matter, can find sanghas of suitable traditions that are operating within their own communities and also providing dharma education online, dharma talks, guided meditations, and also the feeling, the sense of community, which is rather what I hope this channel also does, if indeed you've been able to find it. How you found it, I'm not sure. I know if you search in Google English Buddhist monk, well, if I search that, I come up somewhere, eventually, at the bottom of the list probably, but that's okay. But most people aren't doing that. They're looking at what's put in front of them. Eventually, I think it will lead you automatically to such information and support. But you're here now, so subscribe and stay here now, and we will support you. I will support you as best I can in your practice. But as for visiting other temples and other traditions, you'll never find the perfect monastery, whether it's Theravada, whether it's Theravada city or traditional style, or whether it's Thai forest monk style. I've lived in them all, and with a seemingly perfect Thai forest monastery in Thailand with just a few monks. I will say it was about as best and close as you can get to practicing in solitude, but still within a community and with the support. And the only reason I left there was because I had other responsibilities in another country to return to. But saying that, there were also duties. I did have only a certain amount of free time, albeit a long amount of free time, which would be considered in most monastic communities more than sufficient time for meditation. But if you want to just be really free of any responsibilities and duties and tasks, then as a lay practitioner, you're in the ideal situation to make that happen for yourself. Now, if you don't have a Tibetan temple, the one thing I will say, visiting any of these busy temples, they might not be places geared up for visitors to meditate. Of course, the monks themselves have their kutis to retreat to, retire to go and practice their meditation. But visitors, there's not usually always, in this country, people who have visited me here. I've asked them about other temples they visited and how was it. And the one common thing they've said, if they've come from the West, is that there's nowhere to meditate there. There's not literally a physical place where they can sit and meditate peacefully and quietly, which strikes one as a little odd, being as it's a meditation orientated practice, Theravada Buddhism, as you are drawn to, as you say. But that is the outside public face of monastic life, there for inviting devotional practices and perhaps, donations, financial contributions and this kind of thing. And they don't expect their visitors to be coming there to sit for hours and on end meditating. If you're in a place where there are no temples, there is also other places you can go to. I've practiced meditation. Some of my best places I've found to practice meditation have been in other places other than Buddhist temples. As a lay practitioner, this was. Because, for instance, when traveling, the multi-faith prayer room, which is generally these days directed towards the Muslim community, but welcomes anyone, is a great place to just go and sit peacefully in a corner and meditate. Somewhere where you can comfortably take your shoes off and go and sit comfortably and practice meditation. And that's in the middle of a busy international airport. Or failing that, go and sit at the very far end of any terminal, under the stairwell, there's usually a place where they keep the cleaning products, or the cupboard that houses such cleaning things. You can go and sit in a corner there. So what I'm saying is you can practice anywhere, anytime, any place, anywhere. So don't be reliant for your practice on the location, on the place. This is very insignificant. Unless you're dedicating 100% of your time to practice and you don't want to be disturbed with all of the other goings on and duties, which is in my case, I no longer want to be a part of building stupas, being part of cleaning and maintaining and looking after what is already there in order to suit a whole community and sangha. It's all well and good during your training saying that's all part of the practice, but ultimately what are we looking forward to doing is to be liberated, free from samsara, not create our own worldly existence within a private community, which still has its same hierarchy, its same infrastructure of job responsibilities. Wanting to get away from that, as a lay practitioner, you're more free and able to do that. You don't have the constraints of the Vinaya, which dictate to some extent where you are for a certain amount of time. So go along, enjoy it. Sometimes, I mean, I've been to many Tibetan monasteries. They can be quite overwhelming and quite noisy and a lot going on, and I certainly had no idea what was going on most of the time in those particular places. It may be that they were in foreign countries as well, although I did visit a Tibetan temple in my own country in the UK, and that was very peaceful. There was literally no one around, and there's only one monk, Rinpoche, Lama or something of that nature, and he doesn't live on site. He lives in a place down the road. So I just was greeted by some lay people whom were just dropping off supplies, and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I've just come to look around." They said, "Fine." I sat, I meditated. It was very quiet. If it's like that, go and enjoy it. Maybe leave them some I don't know, cleaning products or some things that don't, what's the word, go off. You know what I mean, toilet rolls or something like that, I don't know. And yes, make the best of whatever you can find. In England, UK, if I'm not visiting monasteries, which is, I rarely go there, but last time I visited the monastery briefly, but I had time on my hands, and visiting my mother, I went to her local church, her Church of England church. Very beautiful building, very quiet and empty most of the time. Found that a very beautiful place to sit and practice. And then in the village nearby, there's another church, which I grew up in the house situated quite close to that, behind the church, and used to spend a lot of time as a child in the graveyard there, playing, and found it great fun, and even spending overnight sometimes in there. It might have been a little insight into my future with charnel ground practice, but I didn't consider it as that such then. It was just a spooky, scary game. But sitting there under the, what are those trees called? They always have the same trees in English graveyards. I've forgotten what they're called, but you can't go to an English graveyard without these particular trees being there, but they have a big canopy, a bit of shade if it's sunny, and they're very beautiful places to sit and practice and meditate, and no one will question your activities there. So there's always places we can find to practice. It's finding time, and it's actually having the inclination to do such, because often our kilesas, or the manifestation or the personification of those kilesas, Mara, draws us away from the practice and gives us the excuses why we're not practicing. So why not go there? Go to there, enjoy the temple. If it's disruptive to your practice, if it's a long way to drive, and therefore considered a bit of a waste of time, then don't do that. Just go to a local park. There must be, I'm sure, if you ask around, I know throughout the US there are Theravada. It's a big country, but there are Theravada in different kinds of traditions of Theravada, communities, sangha, presence in all kinds of places. So I don't know exactly where you are, and even if I did, it wouldn't help me. But you'll have to use good old Google to help you with that. But please stay with us here and we will help you also. What is Buddhism's view on cloning, or if one was to voluntarily become cryogenically frozen and brought back to life hypothetically, where is the cheetah in this instance? Well, as that's hypothetical, there's no real sense in discussing it. Buddhism's view, I don't think, would differ terribly on any other view, that we're talking about here the body and the thinking brain. Now, as far as I'm aware, to my knowledge, if the physical body dies, so does the thinking brain. Similarly, if the thinking brain is unable to work, malfunctions, the physical body dies. At that point, the cheetah is liberated from that physical body, those 5 khandhas. What happens thereafter, we don't know for sure. We can put in the causes and conditions in place for whatever ever happens next, if anything at all, that it is good. So if we do good throughout our lives, then whatever happens next will be good, as we see within the parameters of our lifespan. So the Buddhist perspective in where is the cheetah in this instance, it's gone. If it goes anywhere after death, it's gone, because this is what you're describing as death. In a deep state of anesthesia, so you're unconscious, that's a different matter. Say you're on a life support machine and the thinking brain is working, so considered life still, then the cheetah remains within the body. But as you say, it's hypothetical. There's not any point considering, thinking and discussing, debating and talking too much about the hypothetical when the actual, what is going on, is very complicated in itself to understand. And the Buddha himself has the 4 achintaya things one shouldn't try to think about for fear of his own words. In the sutta says the brain will just split apart if you try and really understand the mechanics of karma, the intricacies of karma, other than do good, receive good, do bad, receive bad, reap what you sow, but trying to determine why something's happening, what is the karmic reason for it. We cannot work it out because it might go back over many previous lifetimes. The original cause. The powers of the Buddha himself that we cannot possibly understand is another. The beginnings and origins of the universe or cosmology, what was before, what started the cycle of birth and rebirth, if there was such a thing, a place of a beginning. These kind of questions, what is the point of thinking about them when you'll never be able to arrive at the answer? In human history, these questions have not been answered, and they actually cannot be answered until you die yourself. And even then we don't know that when you're dead you will have the answer. So we can only deal with what we have at our to hand, which is the present moment, here and now. This life we are blessed with, we're fortunate to have in the presence of this Buddha Sasana, the Buddhist religion, the Dharma, to practice by and guide us throughout this existence with all of its dukkha, suffering. But enjoy it when we understand the nature and cause of that suffering, whilst trying to eradicate that cause. Okay, please put some light on celibacy. Doesn't being celibate affect the body biologically, adversely, like having high blood pressure and other bodily problems, after all, a celibate is going against the natural laws of biology. So I don't know where you've heard that, but that's not correct. So I'm a celibate Buddhist monk, and I know very many celibate Buddhist monks, and also celibate people who are not Buddhist monks. So no sexual activity whatsoever, and they don't suffer, as I don't suffer, from high blood pressure. This is nonsense, really. There's all kinds of Mara's tricks again, this personification of the defilements. Greed, hatred, delusion. Greed encompasses all forms of desire, including sexual desire or lust, carnal desire in that sense, raga tanha, that kind of passion. This is to assist the human race or any species to procreate and to continue and prolong its existence, its development. And you see the dogs, the cats, and all manner of other animals, especially the monkeys actually, running around, the boy ones that is. There's a very anxious and eager and excitable tomcat jumping around here quite often, because there are also a lot of female cats and kittens. And I would say, if anything, although he's probably getting what he wants quite often, I would say he's probably got much higher blood pressure than any other beings around, because he's in this constant search of trying to satisfy what is an insatiable desire. The more he does it, the more he needs. This is the nature of all desire. This is what we're tackling in the practice. We're looking at the cause of suffering, and the cause of suffering is trying to satisfy unsatisfiable desires, rather than just take what we need. We're looking at what we want and fueling the fire of desire by doing unnecessary things. So don't be confused by information out there about celibacy. You won't go have any physical health problems as a result of celibacy, but I will say, as a lay practitioner, there's no need for you to be celibate. We have the third precept, which is to refrain from sexual misconduct, which means only that any sexual activity, whether alone or with a partner or others, must be to the mutual benefit and with the mutual consent of all parties. That is all. Otherwise, anything goes, really. So don't worry too much about that. If one is ordained or living in a monastery under 8 precepts, one must refrain from all sexual activity whatsoever. That is therefore celibacy. So it changes. But as lay practitioners, there's no necessity in that. You can have healthy and probably good relationships without it necessarily always even affecting your practice as a lay practitioner. But ultimately, as the practice develops, you will lose interest. The reason monks, nuns, and people living a long time as lay practitioners in monasteries or as celibate life on the 8 precepts can do that is because they've developed less interest, ultimately complete disinterest in sexual activity. They've eradicated that raga tanha, that passion, that lust, through really seeing the nature of what it really is. It's just more impermanent, very impermanent satisfaction, which causes suffering and is rather out of your control. You see the dog running around, the monkeys running around, the tomcat running around after this and that. They have no control over this. They're really wasting and panting and sweating or dripping, as they tend to do. Dogs, they don't sweat, they salivate at the excitement. But it actually looks rather uncomfortable and painful and tragic experience, not something one would lust after doing yourself if you think about it logically. And if you equate that to us human beings, it isn't too different to the animal world. After all, it's a very animalistic activity, isn't it? And this comes to be really recognized very clearly with the practice, and therefore celibacy becomes that much more easy to be able to uphold. Well, it's not even something you need to even give much consideration to. It's more a loss of interest in the activity than having to really, perhaps for younger people, there is more difficulty than older people, maybe. But the Vinaya rules are very structured in monastic life to understand that and make your environment and your surroundings very protective of that volatile emotion, that volatile physical response and feeling that you might have. It's just biology and chemicals. And the monastic environment, the Vinaya, is designed to guard the senses, to protect you and not encourage you towards those activities. Okay. Monks need to restrain themselves to not go into permanent retreats and close off the world, but I look forward to stimulate my senses after meditating for 60 to 80 minutes. Does this shift in mindset take a long time? So I think because I said recently that as monks or nuns, we have to maintain a level of contact with the outside world. This is in the Vinaya. We have to go on Pindapata, or to collect our food, have it offered to us at the temple. But we have to live within a reasonable walking distance of a community for us to be able to do that, or them to be able to come to us, rather than locking ourselves away in solitary retreat forever and a day and being self-sufficient. And you're saying that you actually look forward to, after meditation, some stimulation and activity. Yes, this is the development of the practice, which isn't instant. You're asking, does this shift in mindset take long? It can vary. It varies with each and every individual on the path practicing Sila, Samadhi, Panya. If you're practicing, you're keeping the precepts, you're practicing meditation, then you will be developing wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states. And the more you practice, the more you will be drawn towards meditation rather than outside, external, stimulating things and environments such as entertainment. Like I was just saying, eventually nibbida, a sense of disenchantment with worldly activities, will creep in. But only if you're disciplined in your meditation. You must at first start with what you can manage, but increase it. Keep increasing the time that you're meditating for, to develop that ability to allow the mind to have time to be calm, become calm and absorb, and also the physical body to relax and become settled in order that you are not fidgeting about, and you can eventually become absorbed into samadhi and into jhana. This is how we develop the practice of meditation, and how we, as a result of that, build increasingly this disenchantment towards the other alternatives and worldly activities. If you're treating meditation as just an exercise, I must do this for a set 60 to 80 minutes, I must count the breath, or I must watch the breath, I must say metta, to so on and so forth in a list, I must scan the body from top to toe, I must do this, boom, boom, boom. When it's finished, I've done my gym work, I've done my exercise. Well, that's okay. But that's not the practice, really. That's not developing anything. It's an exercise, it's a perfunctory action of your body. Not really doing anything with your mind other than controlling that urge to not do that for that time. What we should be doing is using that time to allow our mind to settle and be accepting of whatever comes into it, whether it's into the mind from within through imagination, through wondering about the past or the future, or whether it's from external stimulation, whether it's through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, or what we're feeling and experiencing, the feelings and maybe pain, discomfort, or even pleasure in our bodies during that meditation session, being totally aware and clear of that, what it is that's going on, just observational of that, without a system, without a structure of a rote nature involved, but just an acceptance and a letting go of the desire not to be doing that. And certainly not looking forward to what you'll be doing afterwards, but enjoying what we're doing at the moment, here and now, in the present moment, whilst we're meditating. And yes, this comes with time. It's not to some extent it can happen like a sudden realization, a light bulb moment. Suddenly you don't have interest in certain things anymore. But it's never really that sudden. It might seem sudden because you're immersed in a retreat environment for, say, a few weeks or a few months. And when you come out, suddenly you have no interest in the things you used to do. But it's been that few weeks or few months that has led to that. And don't be surprised if that happens, and don't be frightened if that happens. That's the objective. We're establishing the cause of suffering, and we're finding by that experience of observational practice during our meditation, just through experience, not thinking about it, not judging it, just knowing it, we're learning that this is just what happens with our thinking brains and our physical bodies. And when we leave that environment of intense practice and we face the world, we see, well, it's no different out here than it was in there. But I can just guard my senses to all of that, knowing that I still have this peace inwardly that remains with me. And this is how we've developed equanimity also during that time in meditation, in retreat, or just through our own practice at home. But all of this takes time, it's not instant. We'd love to hear an extended talk on the merits of seclusion from social media and the internet, which seems to be a major source of dukkha. Okay, so I'm at a loss to know what to say that sums up this better than you already have. I mean, seclusion from social media and the internet, which seems to be a major source of dukkha, suffering. It's a major source of dukkha. So seclusion from it is surely, all I can say, it's a good thing, isn't it? So you should turn your phone off, your smartphone off for periods every day, or put it on whatever, aeroplane mode or silent or whatever you do. Have as few notifications. I have no notifications and no sound on my phone, but I'm a monk, so I can do that. But you can't as lay practitioners. But have as few notifications, the real necessary notifications only. Like when the phone rings, you probably need to hear the phone ringing, and maybe whatever your usual messaging system is, whether it's WhatsApp or texts or whatever it is. Other than that, do you really need to be notified with a sound and a message that you have to physically pick the phone up and read to know when, for instance, a new video is released? You're going to go to YouTube anyway, and it'll show you when you look at it at the right time. You don't need a notification. I should be saying subscribe and click notifications. I'm saying subscribe and don't click notifications, because I don't want a bell ringing and notifying you whilst you're doing something else about something that's happening in the future or has happened in the past. We should be mindful of the present moment, here and now. So turn off all notifications. So this isn't an extended talk, because I think you've said enough. Social media and the internet is a source, it's just another form of news. It used to be just the newspapers. I mean, specifically the tabloids, but also the broadsheets also were responsible for causing a lot of stress and suffering for people in their day. And this has been surpassed and overtaken by not social media, but, you know, the internet and our access to even more news from more sources, and also even less verifiable, because we can never be so sure as to the truth behind all of this. There's only a certain amount that we need to know. I mean, getting back to these achantara, these impossible things, that we shouldn't waste our time thinking about when we can never have the answers. Neither should we be really listening to the news about all of the news. Certain things, when I turn the phone on, I cannot get rid of. There's some news headlines. If I accidentally swipe the phone the wrong way, some things, news headlines come up on the side, which seem absurd and quite ridiculous, some of them. Even to the extent they're so absurd and ridiculous, I am tempted to click on one to say, well, what on earth can this be about? But I know these are just intending for you to do that, to click on that and read what that's about. Now, if you were to spend any amount of time reading such subject matter, it is a waste of time, because what good is it doing? It's not going to help you assist those people. Now, you can, of course, if you're living in society and a part of a society, have a certain amount of news you need to digest every day and be informed with if it's in relation to your work. But really, that is still very limited indeed. Whilst I was working and still a layperson living in my home country, I was able to not watch the news. I lived in a life, my previous career involved having to be totally up to date with worldwide news as it happened. Even before the internet, we had pagers. I had a pager that beeped me if something happened in another country that was awake whilst we were asleep. This was prior to smartphones, prior to really having the internet in everyday use, because I needed to have it for my trading activities, this up-to-date information. So it was part of my life, but it drove me crazy in the end. Not actually, but it was just so annoying having to be up to date with all of this news. But there was some necessity behind it. But now we have so many notifications on our devices coming from all directions that are unnecessary, and I could be out of date with this. Maybe nowadays everybody's turned off all of those notifications and they don't have them. But that's how it was becoming when I kind of left that world behind. And I would suggest that with regards to social media, I don't have so much experience in that, but just what I see when a chain of, I don't think chain is the right word, I think they call it a thread of, well, it's just argument, isn't it? Starts to build up behind some person's, what seems to be a relatively basically simple and innocent comment, then might suddenly have a thread of other responses, and each of those in turn might have a similar thread. So like a family tree grows out and out. So like I say something, someone comments, and then there's a whole, as I was discussing just the other day, range of comments coming from all directions, arguing over such a rather insignificant and trivial matter, really. And people making, as a result of it, life-changing decisions. Oh, here I go again, belittling that. But it's said within those threads, I did look at it quickly, themselves, that it's a problem within a certain social media community connected with Buddhism, that there is a lot of this arguments and debate going on. So how can that be right speech? How can that be useful? It is not. So just ignore it, unsubscribe, not unsubscribe to this channel, please. Stay subscribed to this channel, but you don't need any bells and whistles going off. I put the same videos on the same days every week. Maybe you could have a notification, a bell to alert you to live at 6 a.m. India Standard Time every day, to live puja in the morning. Short chanting, short meditation, short blessings to start your day. But for most people watching, that's going to be at the wrong time of day. So even so, there's no need to have a notification, but remind yourself to look at that every day and spend that. If you're not meditating already over 15 minutes, use that little video to encourage you every day to watch it and use that 50 minutes, which is surrounded by some activity to grab your attention and to allow you to settle and sit and get comfortable and allow your mind to become calm before you start that 15 minutes, in order that that 15 minutes of samadhi can be just that, meditation. There's nothing else to do in that 15 minutes except samadhi. That's why I say samadhi, meditation, 15 minutes. So if you want a guided meditation from me, that is what you should do first. 6 a.m. every day, but it's on all day, every day, available on YouTube under the live playlist. I'm not sure where it comes. So you can go to the main channel and click live, and there's probably hundreds of them because I do it every day, and I have done for 2 years or 3 years or something. They're all there, but you only need today's. Just turn it on, put up with my chanting for about 7 minutes, and that'll allow you to get comfortable, and then just don't do anything. Don't think about anything. If you followed along with the chanting, that's allowed your mind to clear up a little bit. Leave the past behind, leave the future ahead where it isn't, coming into the present moment. That's the nature of chanting, that activity, that bowing. I'm doing it for you. You can just follow along in your mind or verbally if you wish, but then just silence and meditation. If you're not already meditating 15 minutes a day, you should at least do that. The entire video takes less than 30 minutes, 27, 28 minutes every day. It's a new one every day. Sometimes it goes a bit wrong, but it's usually works, it's there. When I say it goes a bit wrong, a cat might move the phone, or I might get the words wrong, something like that. It doesn't matter. That 15 minutes is just meditation. And I am meditating too, until my little notification goes off. But usually I can just open my eyes and catch it beforehand, the timer, which is to say that that 15 minutes is over. So you've no danger of being in samadhi too long, because I'll awaken you from that softly with a gentle chant of Sabbe Sata Sukhi Hotu. So please join me for that. And in that sense, afterwards, you don't need social media, you don't need the internet, other than for what you don't have to indulge in it, other than for what you do need. So we all need something. What I'm doing now is internet activity, isn't it? But it's of a very one-way and controlled nature. I don't really do anything else other than some administrative obligations I have as a foreigner living in a different country, and as a Buddhist monk, and those activities, there are certain administrative functions I have to do, which are so very minor and insignificantly small part of my week or day that they don't even, I don't even think of them. They're like mixed in with sweeping the floor, really. So, but if it becomes your world, social media becomes your world, and the internet becomes your world, unless it's your world by the nature that it is your career, or it is your social life, or it is your family life, and you have duties and responsibilities therein, then you should leave it alone. So there are the virtues, the merits of seclusion from social media and the internet. I can't talk about it any more than that, other than to say, like all of these Buddhist practices, experience it for yourself. Try turning your phone off. Someone asked me just recently about a problem they have with their partner, that they're always glued to their phone, and they're also getting very worked up, anxious about whatever it is they're doing on their phone. And this is presumably something that's stimulating their response nature. These debates are designed, and social media is designed to keep you hooked and stimulate that fighting, argumentative, defensive nature within us all. So she's getting anxious, he's getting anxious and worked up about this. And he said, what should he do? He's tried talking to her about meditation, or him about meditation, and talking about Sila and talking about the practice. And I said, well, that's a very advanced step, and we shouldn't be trying to introduce the practice that way as an exchange for something that is so strong in someone's life. But perhaps in the first instance, just to suggest that, hey, shall we go out for a while? Let's pop down to the local park, let's go to the beach, or let's go somewhere out into the forest, somewhere in nature anyway, out of the city, out of the town, or if you're in a big city or a town, into the park, the green space that is available for such for such respite for all in most places these days. Go to that place that's peaceful and quiet, and just before you leave with your partner who's really hooked on their social media, maybe just gently and politely suggest and say, by example, I'm going to leave my phone behind. I'm just going to pop it down on the side as you're going out of the front door. And maybe suggest gently and kindly that they do the same. And if they don't, it doesn't matter, don't worry. But next time, again, do the same. And when they see the you with the absence of the phone and social media, when they see maybe that their notifications, their use of social media is interrupting what is a very peaceful and tranquil and nice day out, an enjoyable day out with their partner in nature, they might be more inclined to put it on silent, or even turn it off in their pocket, put it away, and next time leave it behind. Just gradually introduce it that way. Ultimately, they'll start to just enjoy the world in the present moment, here and now, for what it is, through experience of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, being with the one they love and like to be around, communicating with each other, rather than, like you see, people together, but not together. One's on one device and others on another. Why? They're with each other. They'll miss that partner when they're gone, or will they if they have a device? Maybe not, but I think they would. So make the most of this time we have together and be with each other in that way, by these breaks from the internet, by these breaks from social media. I know to some extent I'm guilty of encouraging you by talking on this channel, making these videos. But I hope that that can be restricted to what you find is useful. And if it's again no longer useful, you can let it go. But ultimately, I hope that it's a continually developing process of reminding not only yourselves, but myself, of what it is we're practicing here. That eradication of the kilesas, lobha, dosa, moha, greed, hatred and delusion, the cause of that suffering that we're all experiencing as the natural characteristic of this existence, like impermanence. And knowing then from that insight, from that realization, from that development of wisdom, that this self is not what we think it is. It's not how we portray ourselves on social media, on our devices, or how people see us. It's not even how we see us. It is that which witnesses what this physical body and thinking brain is up to. Not the image that this physical body and thinking brain creates as a result of physical and biological and electronical activity, but simply that being an organic process is creating pleasure, pain, and ultimately realizing and seeing impermanence, suffering, and through this practice, not self, that isn't us. What is us is simply not us, but that which knows, the knowing aspect, this citta. Now, we all know, as you know, asking me to talk a little bit more about the merits of seclusion from social media, we all know from our own experiences what a relief it is when we do put them down for a little while, when we're told to switch our phones off. And if you've ever been on retreats or meditation retreats or anything of that nature, you'll probably find, I would think, I'd certainly hope so, that you're asked to hand in those devices at the beginning of the retreat time and collect them at the end, so that you don't have that interruption throughout what is, after all, a time to retreat from worldly activities. Isn't the practice the same no matter if one is a Puthujjana or an Anagami? A Puthujjana is the Pali word which refers to a non-practitioner. So anyone really whom isn't practicing the Noble Eightfold Path of Sila, Samadhi, Panya. An Anagami is a once returner. No, sorry, a non-returner. So someone who's achieved to the third level of enlightenment prior to arahantship, who's cut off all fetters, whom has cut off the fetter of sensual desire and ill will. Isn't the practice the same? Yes, the practice is the same. At the stage of Anagami, the practice is considerably easier because one no longer has sensual desire or ill will. So you've immediately lost two of the hindrances before you're even in Samadhi. You've permanently eradicated sensual desire and ill will. So it's just easier. But you're quite right. Yes, the practice is the same. But there is less practice to do. In fact, once you've attained to Sotapanna, stream entry, you've abandoned Sakkayaditthi, self, the belief of thinking that there's a self, anatta, and a full understanding of that, abandoned rites and rituals, and you've abandoned doubt. You understand that there's no doubt in the Four Noble Truths as practice, the Noble Eightfold Path, including right view of karma, rebirth, and on that full understanding, without any doubt, and having attained to Sotapanna, to the extent, as I explained in my talk recently about Sotapanna, you've achieved the first stage of enlightenment. Even then, your practice, I would suggest, is considerably easier in terms of meditation practice. But the overall practice is still the Noble Eightfold Path. You still have to keep precepts, not have to, you want to keep precepts. You should always want to keep precepts, not consider it as a duty or an obligation. We shouldn't want to harm either ourselves or any other beings. It's simple as that. If we want to harm other beings or ourselves in any way, we need to really look into that as to why, and establish the reason, eradicate the reason, and then you'll want to keep precepts. And you'll want to meditate, practice meditation. You will naturally develop wisdom, and you also want to improve your mind states. So another short question. This is kind of related. Isn't conceit one of the few things that only gets shedded last? Yes, conceit is one of the last fetters to be uprooted, cut off at its root cause, its base, yes? But conceit in Buddhism doesn't just mean, oh, I am better than you, therefore you are considered conceited. It means three things. I am worse than you, equal to you, or better than you. Any view of you at all, in that sense, not you as a person, because you've already abandoned Sakkayaditthi, personality view, but that even as someone who's fully understood anatta, so who's abandoned personality view, even that, by way of comparison to another, is a form of conceit, whether it is, as I say, worse than, equal to, or better than. And that is one of the last of the fetters to be removed, shedded, as you say. That's correct. That's the same question. And the next question is about jhanas. So I will leave that for tomorrow's questions and answers talk, because no doubt it will go into some depth, and I think I've probably spoken for long enough today. I don't have the time on here or even a clock in here, as for me that is also a kind of a continual notification. It's enough for me to know when the sun comes up, it's the morning, and when the sun goes down, it's the evening. Now certain things I need to do, like start the live stream at 6 a.m. I look at the phone and it's got the big numbers on there telling me that's dead the time to start. I try to be punctual with that. Other than that, the rest of the day goes any way it might, without the need for the reminder of analog time in any form. And consequently, I never really know how long I've spoken for either, other than how much the mosquitoes that have bitten me are causing me to itch a little, or how much I'm sweating, how wet my robes have become, because it is very hot here. This is my notification. But that's just nature, being a part of nature, blending in with nature. Turn off those devices, turn off those, once you finish listening to this, turn me off, turn this off, don't look at any more. But maybe turn it on again tomorrow when we talk about jhanas. And if you need to subscribe to remind you to do that, then subscribe, and then it at least puts the new video in front of you at the appropriate time, even without the bell notification. I've never had that bell notification, so I don't know what it does at the receiving end myself, so I could be getting it all completely wrong. But I have heard people say that that's something you should, I don't know where you click it, poke it, whatever you do with it. Anyway, I don't. Be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.